Well, this is Jimmy
Wysocki, the
Wysocki.
mayor of Mahwah.
Oh my goodness.
Welcome to
How
the
are
town. We have something on behalf of the township. We'd like to take a picture, present you something in front of the museum
Oh,
sign.
yeah.
Key to the Townships presented to Billy Gibbons on behalf of the Township of Mahwah, home of Les Paul. So thank you so much for coming.
Mayor,
Thank you for being here.
thank you, sir.
Yeah.
We better smile.
Billy, on behalf of the township, welcome to the town of Mahwah.
Let's make it official.
Make it
There
official.
it is. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
The story is in the early 80s. Les Paul called the police department looking for somebody to plow his driveway. I didn't know who he was. I just plowed it at midnight. Coming down the driveway, I slid, and I went right through his mailbox. Get out of the truck, pick the mailbox up, throw it in the woods, and leave. A week later, phone rings, and it's a lady. She said, "I'm at Les Paul's house. He wants to see you." Now, I remember the name, and I'm like, no, I don't, because I think I'm in trouble about the mailbox. He comes out the door. He's like, "I want to give you something for plowing my driveway." I'm like, "Okay." He gives me 4 tapes. "This is my music. I like it." I'm like, "This guy's nuts."
Wow.
These are all his masters, some of his masters. These are all the boxes he made.
Oh my God. Unreal.
I turned this into my Les Paul room. Whoa! And this is all some of his stuff. When he died, this is his eulogy in Guitar Player magazine. Look who they sent it to, though. His girlfriend didn't like it, so she said, "Get it out of the house." She goes, wait, one more thing. I'm like, "Here comes the mailbox."
Here he comes.
He goes, "You play the guitar?" I'm like, "No." He goes, "Hang on." He goes in the corner, comes out with this little guitar. He goes, writes 3 chords, E, A, and D. He goes, "Come back in a week, tell me you know how to play it." There's that Dan Electro gave me the first one.
That's, oh my God, yeah.
You got to put that in Billy's hands because he's
the
going to
first one.
appreciate that.
I need a picture of you with that. That's the first one he gave me. Very first one. I go to leave, goes, "Wait, one more thing." I'm like, "Here it comes." Holds a bottle of champagne. Goes, "On a special day, open this bottle." I said, "What's so special about it?" He goes, "We're on this airplane. Everybody was going." I'm like, "Who?" He goes, "Jeff, Eric, Paul." I'm like, "Who are they?" "Beck, Clapton, and McCartney." "Who else?" Now I'm like, "Who the hell is this guy?" Here's that bottle. I never opened it.
Oh.
And he wrote on it, "To Jim, your pal from Les Paul. Someday I'll open it." And that's how we met. And we were best friends for 29 years. Every time I was there, I always left with something. Here, whether guitar pick, guitar, tape machine, you name it, he gave it to me. Big boxes of all kinds of stuff. He'd say, "Jimmy, throw it away." We had dumpsters. I said, "Well, you can't throw it away." He knew I'd put it in my truck. And my house looked like his house. My wife was going crazy.
What I know about Les Paul sounds exactly like that. Some of these gift items were kind of part and parcel of his personality.
Yeah.
So let me explain how I come into this picture. I went to a guitar show, and I'm walking around, and it's Squires, and it's, 80s tellies, nothing special. I see a train track. Now, I don't know if you know about the first pickup, but Les hit on a train track to make that. It was that. Then I walk a little bit further, and then there's acetates, master acetates that say Les Paul on. Like, what's going on here? I turn around and I see this guitar right behind you. This 1968 Les Paul custom. And he comes up to me and goes, "Howdy, you want to play this guitar?" And puts it right in my hands, just like you. He goes, "You want to plug into Les Paul's amp?" And that's his actual cable right there. And that's the amp he had in his bedroom. And he goes, "Play." I'm trying to understand what's going on. I'm looking around and I'm going, this is Valhalla. What is going on? So behind you is the guitar he put in my hands. But here's the craziest thing, and this is the big reveal. I had, a few months earlier, for one of my friends, bought this guitar. Now, I imagine you could probably understand how important this guitar is just from the case. This is the case that Mary Ford took to England, September 2nd, 1952.
Oh, my.
And if you look up here, Lester Pulfus, September 2nd, 1952. This went on the Queen's Freighter.
Wow.
Now, this guitar had been online for 2 years, and everyone laughed at it. It didn't come with pickups. Now, what I've learned about Les Paul, thanks to Jimmy, he used to take everything out because he didn't want people reverse engineering it. It was mummified in the basement of a studio for 45 years. I saw this on reverb for about 2 years, and I kept watching it. drop in price, drop in price. Finally started doing some research of my own. I said, I think this might be important. So I bought this guitar, and
Whoa.
I told Jimmy the day I met him, hey, I bought this guitar. I think it might have belonged to Les Paul. He goes, the white one? I go, yeah, it's white. He goes, I know the guitar you're talking about.
Oh my God.
I think it's it, man.
Wow.
I'm pretty sure that that's the one.
Wow. Boy, that's Les's work, I could tell you that.
He calls me about a month later and says, I have all of Les Paul's ledgers. I think that the G5 was his Les Paul Roadshow professional prototype. So as you can see, it's got the XLR, and it's much more like a Les Paul recording model than it is just a normal Les Paul. He used to hack things apart. This has his DNA all over it. This is the dawn of time right here. So when Jimmy told me about this, he goes, you don't have the pickups, do you? Jimmy goes, I had them on my wall. Holy Jesus, those are it. Those are it. And if we pull out the picture, show people that this is definitely the pickups from this guitar.
These are the originals that go in that guitar.
Oh, wow. Oh, my God.
All hand wound by Les. These are the actual pickups that go in it.
Whoa.
Look at these. Look at the gauge wire,
Take them
Billy.
out. Take them out.
Take them out, man.
Square pole pieces, indicative, early.
I don't know if you would agree with me on this, but I think this might be the most historic restoration in the history of the company.
It certainly will be. I was just with Caesar. This would be a labor of love. They would do it. You know, another thing that's indicative is that XLR.
Oh, yeah.
Well, he's got it in this one.
Well, it's funny you say that because
Yes, right there.
it fits right on
Yeah,
in because
we got the microphone.
as we have with the other one, as I've
That's
learned,
microphone.
I'll just go like this. Can you hear me now, Mary? I have to think there's something serendipitous about him and I meeting at a hotel randomly in Natick, Massachusetts. He's Les Paul's confidant for 30 years, and we just happen to meet. We start talking, and he just happens to have all the pickups 70 years later at his house, and he has the actual ledgers from Les to prove what this is.
I went to the Gibson factory in Kalamazoo back in 1972, and they had a room that was reserved for prototypes, leftovers, half-finished, kind of, and the Les Pauls were indicative with this, which you never saw, only with Les Paul.
Yeah.
He was adamant. He said, yeah, he said, even if I'm not going to sing, I'm going to have a way to communicate.
So Les Paul, you know, I had to mark the page because I'm old. But when he met Django, here, you hold the book.
Yes.
Django gave him 25 of these picks. He said, I made these for you with his name inscribed in them. And when Les died, he said, here, gave me a box. And he said, you'll know what to do with those guitar picks.
Monogram Les Paul.
You'll know what to do with it when the time comes. Hold out your hand. Hold it out.
There you go.
That's yours.
From Django.
Oh, no kidding. What?
I have goosebumps. They're real. Isn't that pretty wild?
That's too crazy.
You know what it's about, Billy? It's about the look on your face. And that's what, you know, we always say, my wife, I, Joe, Benny, I could sell everything, you know, but it's not about that.
And when you speak of handwritten notes and trying to decipher, he was such an impetuous guy. These creations speak for themselves. Trying to read his handwriting is a little bit of hieroglyphics involved.
And then the paperwork. So I said, what do I do with all the paperwork? His notes. So it only about I guess a month ago, I decided I made books of all his notes. All right, this is one of Les's actual contracts from 1950, 52, signed by Les Paul. That's yours.
In fact, he signed a guitar that I had brought one evening at the Iridium in New York.
Right.
And he said, let me sign that for you. It said, tune it up. He had a spare Les Paul for visiting dignitaries. The tuning gears were super glued out of tune. There was no way to tune it.
And you know, Les was like a jokester, right? He's always on stage. They weren't his jokes. He stole all the jokes. like all jokes. And he'd memorize them.
Early on, I think that I captured his imagination with a few little showbiz quips, and he realized, he said, I mean, having invented so much of this stuff, I became one of these guys that he knew he could, he said, yeah, he said, what brings you here? As I'm trying to tune the guitar. I said, well, if I can get through this, he said, we might be able to go somewhere. It was pretty cool.
Here's some of his old strings. He'd always number them 2-string set for the road show. And on this one, he labeled it 2 Gibson, and he tested them out.
I actually think that what that is that it's his own custom gauges that he put together and said, these are the ones I want, because he started playing custom gauges.
He told me when you bought strings, well, there was Black Diamond, and then the Mono Steel was early 50s. They didn't know that guitar players would gravitate toward various gauges. They just had one. That made it simple for marketing. Les said, oh yeah, he learned it from the Black guys. They would take a set of strings, they'd get rid of the big E string, they'd move everything over one, and then they'd find a banjo string to make up for the high E, and that way it became a,
That's
the
why he
first
labeled
light,
this.
kind of a custom-made light gauge set.
Yeah. All game used Les Paul strings.
Oh, yes.
When we say inventiveness, the depth of that moniker goes leagues beyond what people really knew what he was up to. What we take for granted today was straight out of the basement when he was tinkering.
Oh, yeah. The Ampex behind you, Billy, is the one that Bing Crosby gave him.
Wow.
And that's the one with the extra head he drilled in a hotel room in Chicago, put the second head on it, and that's when Mary sang Hello, Hello. That was Les's kitchen amp on the left he gave me, and this is an amp that Leo Fender gave.
To most, the appearance would be called primitive.
Right.
Kind of homemade looking. Well, it is
Yeah,
homemade, but it's got his
His DNA and his mark.
DNA,
He left his mark.
Yeah.
He left his mark.
What I like about reviewing what Les Paul has come to mean, he brought popularity to something that was really being kind of cast aside. It wasn't really considered. I don't know if legit is the right word, but these things were just, oh yeah, the stepchild. As you may know, the new regime, the new guys at Gibson,
JC.
I call them new guys.
Okay.
But their attention to detail goes deep. They go way, way back, and the opportunity to restore this thing would be, as I mentioned, a labor of love. It'll be taken in good steed here. It was probably around '67 when John Mayall released the Blues Breaker record with Eric Clapton.
Okay.
And the sound of that record brought people to their knees, thinking, gee whiz, this is the greatest. And it certainly stands the test of time. And there's a picture of Eric. You can detect it's a sunburst Les Paul. And kind of slightly out of focus, you can also see, oh, he's playing through a Marshall amp. So those two things really ignited the interest in chasing down the instrument that had gone out of production by 60, what do you think, late 60s?
It was out 60 was the last Les Paul model. Then he came out with the SG, and that went for 3 years, and then he
dropped his name
He
after...
dropped his name, he left Gibson.
Yeah.
And then came back, Gibson asked, can you come back? And that's when they came back, and they realized that the 58, 59, and 60 with the humbuckers through the Marshall amp was rock and roll.
And that guitar that's behind you was actually the first guitar that Gibson made for
this
Les.
is an actual 68.
Yeah, 68 marked the return of this particular version of the Les Paul. Highly sought after today because they were so well made. I started looking for something to get that blues breaker sound.
Right.
I thought, well, if I can't find one of those Les Pauls, at least I could find something with those fat pickups, the humbucker, because you can kind of detect it in the picture. And a good friend of mine, Reed Farrell, who was dubbed Red Pharaoh, he called me up and he said, "Hey man," he said, "I think I found one of those guitars with the fat pickups that you wanted." Well, it was a 1958 Flying V. And that started the love affair with the Gibson humbucking pickup. A friend of ours, another musician, said, "Yeah," he said, "I heard you were looking for one of those Les Paul things, the Sunburst version." He said, "There's a cowboy that he doesn't play much anymore, and he might want to sell it." He said, "Go out, he's got a little ranch outside of town. I think it's under his bed." And sure enough, we had a girlfriend that had been invited to go from Texas to California to try out for a part in a movie, but she had no way to get there. And a buddy of mine, he and I had invested in one of our first cars was a 1936 Packard. We decided to give it to our little girlfriend, Renee Thomas. She got the part in the movie.
Wow.
So she dubbed the car Pearly Gates because she thought it had divine connections to get her all the way out and win this part in the movies. She goes, "Hey, what should I do with the car? Maybe I should sell it." And I said, "Yeah, go ahead." She sold it for $500. She sent me a check for $250, and my buddy got $250. It was the day that I went to this little ranch to meet the cowboy that wanted to sell this unwanted guitar. I said, "Renee," I said, "you got the part?" I said, "No, I got the guitar." She goes, "We're going to call it Pearly Gates. You're going to make music from the heavens."
How sweet is that? Having you here at the Mahwah Museum is just unbelievable. We started this when Les was, I think in 2008. Les calls me one night, he says, "Come on over." So he goes, "I want a museum." Put him in a police car. We come here one night. He walks in the front door. He's like, "Perfect." Everything in here is from Les's house. That's the actual first 8-track recorder. They're panels from his studio. Everything that's his lathe, everything here. And we set it up, and it's on permanent loan from the Les Paul Foundation.
Well, for those interested in all things Les Paul, they should mark this on their calendar as a destination and come enjoy what you have managed to put together.
And what's cool about it is they can come in here and they can pick this guitar up, back it, plug it in and play it. They can play all Les's
Here's
stuff.
the crazy thing. So I've been playing that guitar, and he goes, "You know it has Les Paul strings on it." I'm like, what, like the branded strings? No, we've never changed them. And furthermore, and this is what he did to me. I'm going to do it to you. He put this in my hand. I'm going to give it to you. Here's Les's actual. This is it. This is the actual cable. And when I met Jimmy, he said, "Hey Benny, why don't you see what it sounds like?"
Wow, man.
And it's amazing how different these sound. This is where you go like this.
One of the first little teen combos, we all had these versions of the Gibson amps. There was the Invader, the Falcon, and great sounding to this day. All right, man.
Isn't that pretty cool?
There you go.
Every time I come here, there's a new story. He pulls out this. Now, I'm not a super amp guy, but I have to think, looking at this GE speaker inside, but it has to be one of his first amps.
It's gotta be.
And he pulled this out and said, "Oh, I found it in my closet."
That was going in the dumpster.
Where did you see the word vibrato?
He wrote it up here on the side.
Here. Right here.
He wrote something there too.
Yeah.
All of this. Now what I'm thinking with this, Billy, get this working, play through it for me.
Yeah, sure. This smacks of like mid-40s.
So back in, I guess it was 2001, he was writing a biography called Les Paul in Your Own Words. Says, "Jimmy, I promise you the first copy." I'm like, "Yeah, you ain't writing no book." I never saw him write anything down. So one day he calls me up. I'm in my cop uniform. I said, "What's it? Come over right away. There's 5 boxes." He goes, "My book's here." So he opens a box, and what he pulls out is this. He goes, "I promise you the very first one, here it is." And he says, "To Jim, thanks for being my dearest friend, Rhubarb." He goes, I screwed up. I said, what do you mean you screwed up? He goes, I promised you the first copy. I gave you the last one, number 50. I said, Les, I know what you meant. He goes, no, I promised you the first copy. Here it is, all of his handwritten notes.
Wow.
And he said, I know you'll take very good care of that. Just before I drove him to the hospital the last time, he goes, remember when I found you? I'm like, found me? I said, you called looking for someone to plow your driveway. And I plowed it. He's like, nah, I had someone to plow my driveway. I said, then what'd you call the police department for? He goes, because I was looking for you and I found you, thank you. I'm in the garage, right? It's 2000 and, must I 2000? I said 2015. So my wife's horse stuff's there. I come in and let me tell you what, it was everywhere. I call her, I'm like, when are you gonna clean this garage? And she's like, well, when are you gonna clean all the Les Paul? She goes, what are you gonna do with that? What are you gonna do with the tape machine? I said, well, the tape machine's part of the 3/4 that went with the 8-track there. I said, well, really, it's gotta go into a museum. I said, why don't you pull it out? So she goes to pull it out. And the doors were taped shut. You see the tape?
Yeah.
So she pulled it and the door opened. Now I'm standing, she opened it and she goes, what the hell is that inside? I came around the corner and I looked and I started crying. What she pulled out of it was the mailbox I knocked over when I first met him. He hit it with a post in there for me to find. It had a ribbon on it. But he knew the entire time I knocked it over and hit it.
Oh my God, I got a picture of you. Oh.